Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the audit and risk meeting of today, the 15th of October. Just health and safety, I think everybody knows, exits during an emergency out through the doors at the end or outside door here and assemble out in the car park. We have no apologies because we've got a full contingent. Any conflicts of interest on today's agenda? No. We're a recording device and we're being live streamed. We don't have any announced urgent business. Nope. Alrighty, so we'll move on to the minutes from the previous meeting for consultation. Page, for matters of accuracy, page 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those were just the updates, 9 and 10. Somebody happy to move them as inaccurate? Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Mari. All in favour? Aye. Go through the same matter, any matters arising that aren't dealt with later in the agenda. Page 4, 5. Karen.
It's not an update as such, but the South touring route agreement that is still coming. We mentioned that at the tourism board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they've just had a change of one of the key people who would be, the incoming person would be a signatory. So hopefully by the next time we meet, that'll be sorted. It is still certainly very much an action from that meeting.
Fantastic progress though. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else on 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's see. Ready. Thank you. Any anything to mention there?
The glaring omission on the work plan, Madam Chair, is that we actually do have another meeting before the end of the year on the 11th, Wednesday, the 11th of December. Will work in well because that will be a week before we are due to adopt the final annual report. So the relevant actions for that meeting haven't been listed there, but a few things is looking to do the fraud risk assessment work in the next over the next month. We'll talk about that in PE, and also looking at a full review of that procurement policy, but that's probably going to be in the new year. That's why I've highlighted that in red. But most of the other components are that are dotted for today have been included.
Excellent. And yes, with the policy review next year, I mean, the procurement one is procurement has been identified as one of our higher risks, so we'll keep on that. That'd be good. Any other thoughts from anybody?
Perhaps at the next meeting to bring a 2025 version forward.
Yes. Okay. Anything else? Excellent. All right. If we move on to the information on Audit New Zealand Report to Governance action points.
Some components that we've done in previously that had been closed and been struck out. So we're gradually reducing the list, but there is still a little bit of work to do. Still some continuation of the work around the risk management, and there's some issues around assets, and just to I suppose put keep Graham in the loop that we are moving our ERP system from Magic to Datascape, and so that will rather than making some of the changes to the fixed asset structure now, we're sort of waiting until that comes in, and then we can almost start afresh with the new system. So I think there was things like our assets fully depreciated are their fixed asset stock take as part and parcel of that, and then so a fixed asset register for the thermal pools, just doing that all in one fell swoop rather than piecemeal now and then having to change it again when we move to the transition to the new ERP system.
Yes, I gathered that there was a change of foot. I had it sort of circled there. So who else uses Datascape?
Right. Well, the reason why we're moving is that Kaikoura, who we provide all the IT support work for, are moving to Datascape at the same time. So we get a huge amount of benefit by doing it together, saving something like 400,000 in the implementation. Waimakariri are just implementing it now as well, and Kapiti Coast is another one that's done it recently.
I think you just played into an accountant's heart with that number.
It was certainly a contributing factor in discussions.
I guess there's some risks that come from a change. Have we got an analysis done on the risks of a change and what controls and steps there are to mitigate those risks, including, I guess, the financial risk of a change in package? Most software changes always go sort of an understanding of that. I don't recall that being presented at a previous risk meeting.
No, you're quite right. I don't know whether you want to add some latest developments or whether it's appropriate for PE.
Oh, no, I think we can do it in public. So we have developed some key risks for this project. We've appointed a project manager to run the project. We are confident in the numbers and the timeline for doing this. It's implementation methodology that Datascape have used before, relatively rapid implementation over 6 months, which limits the ability for price blowouts. We're doing a very vanilla implementation, so we're not looking to do it out of the box implementation rather than try and change things around. And no, I can't remember the other point. So we're having a first meeting with the project manager tomorrow. Well, our first project meeting with the project manager tomorrow, and we'll be focusing obviously on some of these risks and what steps we need to take.
But yeah, I suppose if we document those risks, we can certainly bring them as a separate report to this.
Yeah, maybe over the period of the transfer and process. So I guess that's something for the next 3 or 4 meetings.
Oh, I remember what the other point now. And we're not looking to do a big data cleanse and transfer and try and transform all the data into the new system, our existing data. We're looking to leave that legacy data with a legacy system, so it's still available to us, but transfer over the minimum amount of data, which costs a lot of organisations a lot of money, and there's a lot of risk in that. So we'll leave that behind.
Yeah, having vanilla is, from my experience, a really good start to avoid problems, because a lot of the legacy systems have got so many mods that you cannot get an upgrade path through, and you end up with a dinosaur.
Our current system, I used to use it down at Mackenzie, but use it quite differently to how we use it in Hiranui. So it is, yeah, you can see immediately the divergence of the use, and just having something straight out of the box and using that. And Kaikoura will be sort of required to do the same, and so we're sharing resources, and so there's no need to customise stuff.
Why make are they going vanilla as well, to the best of your knowledge?
Imagine they would go completely vanilla, but
Just the other point, I mean, Jace made the point that, you know, there's a synergy with us going at the same time as Kaikoura, but the base reason for us doing this is not only the cost of our current system and price advantage, but the fact that this is a modern system. It's written in modern language, and it's cloud native, so it's a good developable system for the future. We've worked with Datacom over a number of years on things like our website, etc. So we have a high degree of trust in them as an organisation, and you know, we know their people, they know us. Yeah, I think notwithstanding the problems that these inherent problems with changing the ERP system, I think we're in a good place.
Datacom's been around for a couple of years now. Well, Bernard Battersby back in the 60s set it up, so they're not exactly spring chickens.
Actually, I think just brought a good point too from a risk analysis that, you know, perhaps over the next 3 or 4 meetings or whenever that, you know, we have line of sight over the transition, and, you know, just to keep us informed, I guess, from that perspective. So I would support what Graham's just asked, and perhaps suggest that we do that. Everybody else thinks, but it might be really helpful just to keep an eye on the transition, because no doubt it will throw up some benefits, but it might also throw up some, you know, fish hooks that we need to manage or understand. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just putting down, you know, with a project manager, be presenting those as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Excellent.
And a risk register items being added and addressed, and probably this conversation has just been had, captured somewhere.
Yes. Excellent. So,
yeah, so there's a couple of big meaty issues sitting in the action points that you know we are working on. And then there's a few smaller bits and pieces here that we're just knocking off as we go. But once we've got those the risk management process in place, the assets moving to Datascape, and then procurement, and that leads on contract management. The bulk of this list will be
Just a question, if I may. So when we look at the fraud risk and, you know, workshop to be undertaken later in the year, I'm just conscious of the time. Have we got time to actually ensure that that is tabled and managed in that timely in the time frame?
So it will be dependent on discussion with PE on that one. Yeah, I know, seems rapidly running out of here already. But,
I guess that's what I was thinking about. We need to be realistic, you know, as to whether we can facilitate that in a way that we can be prepared and get the best out of a workshop, understand wherever our pathway forward is. So, you know, I don't want to put pressure just to meet this deadline if it's, in fact, it might be better done in a more diligent way elsewhere. Yeah.
Also very mindful that the audit process kicks off after Labour weekend, and that's tying our finance team up for a good 6 weeks. But
so I just think it needs to be, you know, we need to consider that in the context of all the work. Yeah.
We need to manage our priorities, don't we?
Yeah.
And as you say, be realistic about what we can achieve, and take steps to address it if it becomes an issue.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Any other comments? So, move the information be received. Accept. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Graham. All in favour? Right. NZTA.
I'm not sure whether Charlie was.
Do we want?
Charlie's available, and maybe Sean as well. But I suppose just the draft version of the procedural order from NZTA was presented to PE at the last meeting, but since then we've finalised it, and it was just important to bring it into the open meeting. Yeah, done the report to do so. So yeah, just the appropriate that he presents.
The council ordered to come to ops. They came to ops.
Did come to ops, but yeah, when it was first the first because it is a financial audit process that has originally came to audit and risk when we received the very ordinary report and a process to develop it from there. We could park it and go straight to health and safety.
Yes. Page.
Sorry.
Welcome, John. Thank you for jumping in.
So did you want me to start with the health and safety report? Or talk about contractors?
Now, what do you want to do? I've got both of you.
We deal with John's email.
Okay, we'll do the health and safety.
Okay, so see from the background there, the only trend really that I noticed over the past 2 months was a few slips and trips. Some of these involving IT, some were involving volunteer groups, and one with an employee working at a private property at the back, inspecting the water installation and these slippery steps. So, training, we've had some, there's 3 instances of vehicle damage, low impact speeds, low speed impacts with stationary objects reversing into or slipping into a tree stump and a gate. We've had several sets of training going through the leadership group. We had 2 sessions on drug and alcohol awareness training, where we went through our policy and looked at signs and symptoms. For a lot of people, it's quite there'll be some people in there that are well versed in drugs and alcohol, and there'll be a lot of people in the room that aren't quite so well versed. So it's something that was well received, and currently we've got investigation training underway. We've had one session for people leaders and for health and safety reps, and we've got another session coming up. And the idea behind health and safety reps doing it is we want to spread the knowledge of investigation training throughout the organisation, and health and safety reps seem an ideal. They've had a little bit of training in their health and safety competency modules that they have to do. But it's good to have someone that's outside of a business unit looking at because they bring less biases with the professional advice. Also attached is I've changed the report slightly, so this is a copy of the report that represents the ELT. It shows trends over a period of time.
Certainly, the layout makes it easy, and it will become more obvious as we have more
There
months.
is a lot to see there, I must admit.
Yeah. Certainly good to collect it in that fashion. Any questions comments from anybody?
So the 3 unsafe acts, have they been obviously identified and worked through with a staff member, or what are those unsafe acts?
I'm sorry, Murray, I can't
No,
recall,
okay.
but I'll say.
And I'm probably not asking for the detail, to be fair, but you
Yeah.
know, what
So if there's,
a
yeah,
level of understanding how compliant we are.
yeah, so an unsafe act may be something that's totally innocent that we just didn't realise we're doing something a certain way, and it actually introduces or exposes us to a hazard that we hadn't realised before, so we may rework the procedure or the process. An unsafe act might be, it could be a member of the public, it's one of our staff. I'd need to dig into
Yeah,
it.
no, look, I'm not asking you to do that
Yeah,
job.
there's actually 11, it says here, unsafe acts, there's 11 across that period.
It's 3. Well, I think it's 3, isn't it? There's 11 near misses. That's how I read it.
So which graph are you looking at?
Oh, I'm looking at number by type. This one on the
Okay.
bottom left.
All right, yes, okay.
Yeah,
So that's,
I guess. it's
sorry,
job-
that's the 11 is across a 2-year period.
Oh, okay. And through the chair, I'm not looking for the detail, I'm just looking to, have we learned from it? You know, and I guess you've talked about some.
Hopefully we would have learned from them,
Thank you.
yes. Every incident that comes through, well, I look at every incident that comes through, and then the LTOs will get a copy of every incident that comes through. So if there was something that one of us missed, we'll pick it up.
Thank you.
Great. Number by classification, there is a upwards trend line. Is that the fact that we are now capturing more instances that were previously flying below the radar, or do we have a increasing trend of issues?
It's 2 points there. One is that it's, yes, we are getting more incidents reported, but also that line is actually cumulative. So it's a little bit misleading.
Vanessa.
Chair. John, look, it's sounding a little bit too detailed, but just for this benefit of the report and further to what Mark has said, the unsafe act and unsafe condition, more the difference between the two is insofar as the act, the condition would cause the unsafe act. It sounds like I'm getting the weeds, I know, but how would you define the difference?
An unsafe condition might be something where a piece of equipment has failed, or
Right.
we might be operating something in a non optimum way.
Right.
An unsafe act would be someone interacting with that equipment or undertaking the process in a way that's not fitting with the process.
So it's a cause and effect. So the same incident could people be reported under both categories?
We'd only record it once.
Okay.
We wouldn't record it twice.
Okay. So one,
Yeah, that's right. An incident comes in and that will be categorized. It doesn't get double checked.
Thank you.
Good clarification. And again, it's something that's evolving, so there will be some questions of understanding as we go, and we'll all begin to understand it, and there'll be some fine tuning. You've obviously put a lot of work into it and coming up, so it's progressing the whole time. So we really appreciate that. We're getting better reporting and visibility in place, so thank you. Now,
Yeah, there was just a query or an item that was raised by an independent member with regards to the Health and Safety at Work Act, and I just relayed that to John, just around contractor management and what we're doing in respect to subcontractors.
Okay. So do you want me to answer that?
yes, please.
Okay, so it depends on the level of risk. So you'll contract in work, you might have a contractor supplying us with paper for the printer, fairly low level. You might have a contractor that's working for us for 2 years, digging up roads and interacting with the public, very high risk.
So there will be a graduated response. The first step for any contractor working for an invitation to apply to provide a service would be site-wise. So we would ask them for their site-wise accreditation. Site-wise is simply a desktop exercise. They, the member pays to be part of site-wise, and then they assess them. They will ask them for information on their insurances, their health and safety systems, whether they've had interactions with the regulator, all of these sort of questions, and then they're given a score, and it's a score. And anyone that scores 80% is green. Anyone that scores 90%, I think, is site-wise gold, and you'd get people that have ISO 45001 would be part of that. That in itself does not say that the contractor is safe. It's just simply, I can supply information to someone, and it's just, as I said, it's desktop. So the site-wise is just the first gate post to say, yes, okay, we're interested in your work. Then we would look, and depending on the risk, as I discussed before, if the risk is high, so if it's someone doing work out in the public realm, we would undertake, first of all, we would ask to see their SSSP, site-specific safety plans, and we would undertake a site visit. If the risk is ongoing, for example, Hamden number 1 water scheme, across 2 years, there's a weekly visit by the project manager there, and he will check on other things. He will be there, you know, checking on their PV, checking on their site boards, checking that they're, because there's 4 different subcontractors there, and they themselves are their own subcontractors. So although we might have a good subcontractor, they might bring someone else in that brings a risk, and we still have responsibilities there. So we need to be aware of that. And the best way of doing that is to actually first to do site visits, and secondly to do a site audit if it's particularly risky. So that's the way that we deal with contractors and subcontractors, and use our duty under the Act.
Supplementary question, if I can, through the chair. The checks by the project manager that you're saying are weekly, are these documented and retained?
Some of them are documented and retained, some of them are informal visits.
Should we not be documenting them all?
So, quite possibly. It's more about the intent and what you're actually doing to. Yes, it's good to have evidence if there was an incident and the regulator comes in. This can be two-sided, because there will be information in that evidence that they will say, well, there's a pattern here that you haven't picked up, because hindsight's a great thing. Yes, yes, it is good to document, but you can do too much documentation as well.
I guess it's keeping it also cost-effective documentation.
It's not only cost-effective, it's you run the risk of it becoming a tick box exercise. I'd much rather someone came with a fresh set of eyes and said, actually, that doesn't look right to me, and ask the question, rather than, yeah, it looks like I'm doing the PP, but actually there's a big pit there that they're working next to, but I haven't got a pit on my checklist, therefore it doesn't count. Oh yeah, that's going to be covered up in a minute. Well, how's the public? You stopping them from, is it covered up for tonight? No, it was next door walkway, the public could fall in there. But if you haven't got pits on there and they say, yeah, we're going to deal with that, we're going to cover it up, you wouldn't ask the question. Yeah, it's just, you know, because I'm following this.
Think of that.
No.
Yep.
I understand it, and it's documentation. Somebody cuts both ways.
Yes.
You know, if you ever were investigated and they will say, did you do it? Prove it.
Yes.
Is one way, but the other way is that then it may actually expose you to risks if the stuff is happening. But as long as we're keeping it like so,
you should be able to prove it. And I mean, one way of proving it would be to show a calendar entry and say, well, this project manager went there on that site, and you would interview that project manager and say, well, what did you do on? I did this, and I did this, and I checked for this, and I checked for that.
Sounds like we're well covered. Vanessa?
Through the chair, an obvious question, John, and subsequent to Graham's question. So look, I understand not necessarily having to work to that rigid paradigm for the reasons you just outlined, but someone arbitrarily is coming across an issue that will be documented post-discovery, obviously.
Yes,
Right, so just because it's not sort of a tick box scenario.
I would hope that that would come through either as a near miss or as a suggestion for improvement through our same health and safety reporting form.
But we are putting that requirements quite obvious.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it gives everybody some confidence and understanding the whys and how we operate. Excellent, thank you very much for that. So does somebody want to move the information be received? Thanks, Vanessa. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much for all that. Right.
Yeah, sorry, back to
NZTA.
page 15.
Procedural audit review. Welcome, Charlie.
Good morning.
It's a very good morning.
Great morning.
You want to take us through this?
Let's do it. So just wrote a little report just to highlight some information around the NZTA procedural audit that was carried out in June. It's one of two audits that NZTA do on a triennial basis. So we have the technical audit, which is the field-based practical version of looking at what NZTA dollars are going towards on the ground, and then the procedural audit, which is by and large how we spend their money, how we procure services, and how we then deliver that via contracts. So we had an audit completed in June 2024. The highlight of all of that is the actual score at the end of it is probably the huge takeaway, and where the work was delivered across those individual areas that gave us such a good score at the other end. The single biggest area of improvement was in the procurement processes. So that was one of our worst scoring offended in the audit that we had in 2020, and it's now the best, the highest scored category there. No of the audit areas that we were audited for sitting below some improvement needed. The definition of some improvement needed is actually effective work practices in place with some minor omissions or minor issues that need to be addressed, which is a really good position to be in. We came into this audit with 11 recommendations from NZTA. 9 of those recommendations were satisfied on the 2-day period. We've left 2. One of them was partially satisfied on that day, and the other couldn't be tested, but that's because it's a practice that we no longer do. So it's around direct awarding contract value over 50,000, which we don't do anyway. So they couldn't test it because we haven't had any examples of it. So will stay as a recommendation, but not something that we actively do now anyway. The 2024 audit provided 4 recommendations, minor at best, and 3 of them are already resolved. So the 3 that were recommended at the end of that audit was around low cost, low risk program expenditure matching dollars on the spreadsheet provided by NZTA to what we've claimed for, which was resolved immediately by the capital projects team. Ensuring the Lake Sumner Road post-construction stage safe system audit is responded to. This happened to come up during the previous roading manager's existence here, which is sort of where it fell off. It was identified, there was work carried out, but the actual audit that was completed by our engineers was never responded to. And part of those safe system sign-offs is that there is a response given to them. So there is a little bit of work to undertake there, but nothing major. Then the provisional recommendation ensuring all safe system audit reports are completed in the future, which is fine, and then formally documents the methodology of calculating cost recovery multiplier for its in-house professional services. This is how council staff are calculated for, so their time, their devices, their overheads, all of the provisional that we then on charge into TA as part of our network and asset management claim. And that was completed and that was sent to the auditor in good faith to see if it would stand the measurement, and it would. So that has been resolved as well. So it was a very, very good result for council from what once was. It was a huge pivotal shift, largely in procurement process and the process as a whole. I think as far as the roading team sits, there is a lot better mechanisms in place for capturing contract documentation, for going through a process, for initiating and storing processes, and all of the documents that the auditor requested during that process were easily achievable because of our document repository. And there wasn't really anything that we had to go hunting for. So we were able to provide that. And it was a really good result.
Excellent. I mean, it's been a long journey, and it's great to come from there. And it's fantastic that staff have taken it on board and actually worked away and come up with a really, really good result. I mean, you'd be really pleased. I know we'll be really pleased to get that sort of result. Graham, any thoughts?
Yeah, so the weaknesses in the previous one, which evidenced itself with Project Rata, there's the odds of that reoccurring are therefore low.
Yeah, and I think there was I mentioned before, the previous audit done in 2020 had the spectre of that issue looming over it, and sort of did highlight that there were deficiencies in our procurement system, and that when we appointed Miro Business Services to assist us, that was the first port of call, was looking at our procurement systems, and we developed the laserfish forms process as a result. And they sort of happened in the background. I've got nothing to do with it, so but it's been very pleasing result.
Certainly had. What's good to see is when something like that happens, that there's been such a focus on it, and there's been a lot of support to get that through, and to have it pay off and get ourselves to the situation. Mari.
Yeah, thanks. It's great work, Charlie and the team. You know, in 2020-21, we were really exposed and vulnerable, weren't we? You know, and now, I mean, they're not terribly rewarding definitions of good practice, to be fair. But you know, once you understand the definitions, but you understand how far we've come. You know, so I think the team need to be acknowledged for that. I guess the thing I was thinking about is how can we make sure, you know, if we lost one of our key staff members, and you know, we don't want to get into that place again. So have we got, as best we can, make sure that we've got, you know, a seamless process if we were going to lose a staff member in these key areas, so we don't get ongoing or another exposure event, you know. And I guess that's something for us and the team to be thinking about. Thanks, Charlie.
And there is, just on that, I mean, there is a well-defined process and training module now associated with our procurement processes. So alongside the procurement process that we go through every time that we go to award a contract or something like that, we have an annual procurement process training where every person who's involved in any of that journey is invited to. So in theory, any staff member that was to leave out of any of these strategic roles should, in theory, be able to just hand over the reins, and there's enough documentation and manuals and guidance documents now to be able to pass on those.
Good to hear. Thank you. It's so cool. Yeah, that's right.
It's excellent, isn't it? Because having the right systems and the right processes then just keeps everything working. And so they're the significant thing, aren't they? The checks, the balances, but also having that oversight. Maybe when you get the system so well, you can do yourself out of a job, not be missed. But we appreciate absolutely the sterling efforts and the sense of comfort that we can take now on the improvements. So keep up the good work.
Thanks, Helen.
Rightio. Oh, yes, thank you. I was looking to the next page. Thank you, Henry. All in favour? Thank you. Right. Lost my page.
Yeah, we're on page 53, 53, which is the quarterly treasury report.
Ah, yes, there you go. Thank you.
Now, apologies, the quarterly report was only passed sent through to you last night. So I haven't had a great chance to review the contents of it, but I suppose the economic commentary is quite interesting in the fact that the official cash rate was cut by the bank a couple of weeks ago, last week, down from 5.25 down to 4.75, and a lot of the commentary is that there will be another cut at the next review at the end of November. But that sort of tends to mirror what's happening in the global context as well. So the US Federal Reserve has dropped their rates, as well as what's happened in the Bank of England and in Sweden, and hasn't happened in Australia, but they are predicting cuts in early 2025, but the one that's gone against it is the Bank of Japan, which I don't profess to understand in any way, shape or form. But that's the major takeaway that I've seen in the markets in the last month, that the official cash rate has been pricing in those cuts, and the 90-day bank bill rate has been pricing in those cuts, and we're benefiting from that because their overall external rate of interest has dropped as well. So the normal dashboard items, so they're on page 4 and 5, and at the moment we're within all of our limits in respect to their treasury risk management policy. The key aspect is on page 5, sort of halfway down the right top table. There's the all-up weighted average cost of funds, including margin, is now 4.91%. Only 2 months ago, that was 5.25%. So we're taking advantage of the falling interest rates, and that does result in lower interest costs that we have been incurring, and that was budgeted for in the long-term plan, because we did use the yield curve at that time to pinpoint the relevant interest rates that will be applicable at that time. So yeah, the first couple of months wasn't that promising, but it's certainly come through, and if the commentary is that there will be further cuts, we'll again benefit from that when we've got at the moment $71 million of debt. Every basis point off that interest rate is a savings to council.
Jason, I think when you sort of touched on it when we were forecasting out and doing our LTP, does that our forecasts anticipated some of these falls?
Yes,
I think that's what you're saying.
I think in our average rate of interest rate for the 24-25 was down to 4.75%. We're down to 4.91%, but starting at 5.25%. So by the time we get to the end of the financial year, hopefully we do have an average of 4.75 or lower. And the trend, or the trend is sort of going that way. If there's another 50 basis point cut in the official cash rate, that rate for us will probably drop to 4.43.
Right.
At 30th of June, how are we sitting with our swaps? Are we out of the money or?
No, well,
Or in?
at the end of June, we were still in the money because most of our swaps, and I think you can see we've got one swap that has a 4 in front of it, and everything else has got it's page 7. Everything else has got a 3 in front of it, apart from a few row ones which are 1.5%, which we're certainly making money on. And the 4 swaps that we're moving, going out are all under 4%. So it's just when the interest rates drop below 3.5%, we'll end up paying that to the bank for the first time for a while. But on the other side, we've got lower interest rates.
The position that we're in is probably one of the better ones. Most of the councils are currently experiencing being out of the money because the drops happened, and it was probably predicted to be happening a wee bit further out. So well done to probably to yourselves and Bancorp.
Again, I can't take a lot of credit for any of this. It's just timing. The one note on page 6, we do have some the structure of our lending up there, $1 billion. Is the current interest rates that we're getting charged. Many of them have a 6 in front of them, which will be repriced every quarter. The one that stands out is that the third one down, where we took $3 million out in September 2020 at 0.88%. See those interest rates again.
But I think a few years ago, you moved the system to be more flexible, to make adjustments, and definitely previous term might have been the one before that, because it made us more agile, didn't it? And so that was actually a conscious decision to work through on that, and now it's paying dividends. So I think that's where you might say, oh, but that flexibility gave us that opportunity to be with the position we're in. So you can take the congratulations.
Yeah, and I suppose we've got the policy allows us to do that. So we're still sort of on the lower end of our the minimums of our policy. So and that's bearing fruit while the interest rates are dropping, but the interest rates start climbing again. In a different position.
Yeah. Excellent. Any other things you want to raise, or any questions, commentary? Right, I'm happy to move that the information be received. And second, Mary, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Right.
Oh, yeah, and sorry, coupled with the on page 54 and 55, it was just a letter from the LGFA on they were just releasing their 2024 annual report, and just some key components of that. Listed on page 53, their operating profit for the year was just over 10 million. They met 15 of their 18 performance objectives. The total outstanding loans at the end of June 2024 was 20.5 billion. And longest dated loans out to 13 years. During the year, they issued 6.1 billion of new debt. And the membership is now 77 councils and 5 CCOs, and they continue to look at providing new products. But principally in the last little while has been sustainable loans, where you, if you've got particular projects that are required because of climate-related issues, that there is you can obtain loans, and there is a slight reduction in the margin attached to that. But from the council's point of view, we just use the RGFA at the moment for meeting our cash flow requirements, and that covers our internal debt. But certainly, if we do have some key climate-related projects, that we can apply for specific loans for those, and try and obtain a lesser cost as a result. The other product that they do promote is just having standby facilities as well. We have our standby facilities with Westpac at the moment, and yeah, it's an option for us. And at any stage, and that will help us meet our liquidity requirements that's required under our covenants. We have to have at least 10% extra for our liquidity at 110%, which means our total facilities in place need to be 110% of our total loans. And we do that by having a flexible facility with Westpac. But in reality, generally, we're able to obtain debt, short-term debt, within a couple of days' notice from our GFA, as long as we're meeting all of our other criteria. So if we're caught by a disaster, which we have in the past, that we've got some sufficient liquidity to meet our requirements there, but generally they're not required within 2 days to pay. So we can organise ourselves pretty rarely if need be. Not explained it particularly well.
You must have explained it very well, because I don't seem to get questions. Or maybe.
What's the relative cost between Westpac and using LGFA? Is there a saving to be had, or is it not worth the effort?
There is a savings. To hold the debt for Westpac at the moment costs us 30 basis points. So at the moment we've got a $7 million facility, so that costs us 0.3% per annum to hold that facility. When we do pull down debt, the margin that they charge is 1.2% over the BKBM. So whereas our GFA for short-term debt is normally 30 basis points, so it is cheaper using short-term debt from the LGFA. But it's not as flexible as we do with the Westpac facility.
Good.
But yeah, that assessment pretty regular basis. I do only use Westpac as and when required. I get caught short, which shouldn't really occur, but yeah, quite often there's some major projects happening that I'm only fully aware of it only a couple of days before the bill is due. So it's yeah, just getting that a little more structured.
Yes, I can imagine if you could reduce those, you might reduce the others. So that's processes, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as we fine tune those, but I'm sure there will be times when you would still have things crop up. You just try to minimise them.
That's right. Yeah, and yeah, there are processes you need to go through to pull down the LGFA debt. It does, like I said, it takes a couple of days, and there is legal documents that need to be forwarded, and things like that. So it is, yeah, it isn't quite as readily available as just getting funds down from them.
Mary?
Thank you for the explanation, but, you know, $20 billion seems like an enormous outstanding loans, doesn't it, up and down the country, you know? Is there any point where that becomes like too much exposure to the, you know, I mean, it just seems like an incredible number of zeros on the end of a number.
And
Yeah.
within the annual report itself from our GFA, it'll break it down to the individual councils, how much is owed by each, and so the Auckland Council has a fairly large chunk of that, and you know, we're very much a minor player in that, and again, a good chunk of it relates to infrastructure and principally through water. So hence the work happening over a number of years on water reform.
And I guess we'll potentially see something different in this annual report going forward if there is increasing CCOs up and down the country as well. You know, there'll still be 77 odd councils, but there might be as many CCOs or significantly maybe 50 CCO. Who knows if that's the trend or the way it's heading, and I guess that will come through in this annual report.
That's right.
As things sort of develop or change.
It is an item that we'll probably discuss in PE as well, but if they are water CCOs with the LGFA will allow up to 500% revenue, debt to revenue ratios in respect to that. So there is higher leveraged entities that are borrowing from the LGFA potentially down the track, which I don't know what that means from a risk point of view.
Right, and I mean, that's just a general discussion. I'm thinking that not specific as to, you know, what might happen in our district or neighbour, but it just, I guess we'll see that in next year's report if things are making some changes.
So that was the main point I was going to raise, is the impact of the water entities coming through, but it's all based on the fact that councils have the coercive ability to rate. So therefore the risk is very low, and we're therefore borrowing effectively at sovereign rates.
Yeah, and so the requirement for potential CCOs to have that council guarantee attached to it to meet.
Interesting, thank you.
Very interesting. Actually, because we've already moved that, but we hadn't done that, but I'm happy to adopt it to just move that we accept that further information received. So, thanks, Gary. All in favour? Thank you. I'm just being tidy here. Okay, thank you. Now,
Page 62.
Yep.
Right, this is the final report in
Yes.
an open meeting, is just a quarterly financial report for the Hiranui Community Development Trust. And again, this has just been provided because the specific terms of the loan between the council and the trust require audited accounts and quarterly reporting. And as I've said, the natural audience for that information is this committee. So the background there, the total loan is $415,000 for 15 years, interest free, and we've received better off funding to cover that, and just the quarterly reporting requirements are just listed there as a result. The chair of the risk committee, Nikki Anderson and Annie McLean have signed that as trustees, and just providing details of the loan received and how they've applied that loan money to their expenditure. So key works happening is subdivision of Parnassus Street and then the development of new homes there. You want to add, Hamish?
Madam Mayor, I think you went to the site recently.
Yes, I did. I went to the site of their, I don't know, it was number 1 or number 3 to be fair, do you know? Doesn't matter anyway. So the roof's on, the walls are intact, and the new owners are very excited. They're a young couple that live in the area, and they were at the point of choosing colours and carpets and everything else. So they were terribly excited by that, and it is anticipated, and I don't know anything different to that, but anticipated that they will be in their new home by Christmas time. So, you know, it's, I mean, it's I can't help but think when I went up to that very simple function at the home, all the trustees were there, all the subbies, the tradies that have been part of that, but actually what an excitement it does for a small community, and you know, the genuine excitement of creating a home for a young couple and what that might be for the community. It is a very good example of community development, and I've only had a small 1.5 or 2 hour window maybe celebrating with them their achievements with the community, but it was pretty cool to be there. So
it's a good team, aren't they?
Well, I guess the other thing, sorry Fiona, that the trustees have a genuine intent to use local contractors, local subcontractors, and you know, so they've really bought into that project as well. And I mean, it's a lovely 3-bedroom home, and will be super warm. It's quite a big section, so it's quite a nice outdoor development that they can do. A super view from the lounge living area up to Tarako, Mount Lyford. Yeah, so really a really good example, and it's I think they were incredibly grateful for the support that we had given as a council to ensure this interest-free loan to help kind of facilitate the process as well. So, you know, I know it's a lot of money, but it's in their context, it's significant contribution. So yeah, great.
Thank you.
Great.
So just further that, I mean, this is obviously an equity share, so a chunk of money will come back to the trust when the title passes over to the new owner, and that will fund the development of the next property as well, next house.
Thank you for the explanation, because not everybody has been around the table from the start, so understanding how it all works is really good.
That answers the question I was wondering.
There you go.
Thank you. Which was all about how it's just recycled and repaid, etc.
Yeah, fantastic, and that's why it was crucial piece of information. All right, so the information be accepted. Thanks, Karen. Second that. All in favour? No, you're all good. I'm just picking. I'm choosing. Rightio, so there.
I'm not really confused, because we got the annual report for the Development Trust and we got the quarterly report. I got, you know, when I was like, is this a mistake that's in there? And then the penny dropped in the quarterly report, because we actually had the annual report from the Community Development Trust in the last set of minutes.
All right.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like,
So,
yeah, took me a while to get the penny to drop, but that's okay.
Well, you've got to look.
Well, pennies.
Yes, it is a lot of pennies. Rightio, so we've flicked through that. We must come to the, what time is it? I think that you have morning tea, or will we do? Yeah. 10:30. I think it was great for morning tea. Do we want to move into PE before we go to morning tea?
Makes it cleaner.
Makes it cleaner.
Yeah.
Okay, and having, thank you, no thirsty. All in favour? Thank you.